Let's get this sports podcast party started, all right?
The JAYREELZ podcast.
Why don't you wait until July 1st to make an announcement? What a disgrace. He can rack up all these numbers in October, November, and December, but what really counts is let me see this in January.
The sports rebel without a pause, delivering fast-paced, jam-packed sports talk like no other.
Listen, I gotta call it as I see it. He is not a good player. I'm sick and tired of having to deal with the disappointment of this franchise. When does it stop? And yes, another winter that I can sleep in peace. Coming correct, direct, and in full effect. Let's get it.
This is the JAYREELZ podcast. Welcome aboard.
What is happening, my good people? Greetings. How are you? How's it going? How's everybody doing out there? What is the latest and greatest? Hope everybody's doing well, feeling fantastic, in excellent spirits. It's another holiday Monday as I take a trip throughout the sports landscape to share my thoughts, analysis, and opinions on all that's happening, as this is the JAYREELZ podcast with Joe's JAYREELZ. For my first timers, welcome aboard. And for those who've been banging with me going back to the very beginning, somewhere in the middle, or even as early as this past Thursday, I welcome you guys and gals back. And yes, it is a President's holiday, as I'm sure a lot of people are off today. Maybe not, but considering after Martin Luther King last month, and now we have a President's holiday on the heels of what took place in Los Angeles over the weekend with the NBA All-Star festivities. And that's where I'm going to begin, because not only do I want to unpack that, but I also want to talk about the first almost 2/3 of the season to kind of segue into Thursday's podcast, which will get into the crystal ball and look at what the quote-unquote final third, or if you want to even say second half of the season, is going to look like. So we'll touch on all that as well as many other things throughout the sports universe. But I want to start off with the All-Star festivities. Now, of course, if you haven't listened to the podcast or haven't been in tune to what it is that I say when it comes to what had taken place, did I watch 1 second of it? I did not. Of course, I did have my fingers on the pulse. I made sure that I was connected to what was happening, what was going on. And I know there were a lot of people that were, I don't want to say upset, but they were certainly maybe befuddled by the start times for All-Star Saturday, as well as the game yesterday. 5 o'clock here in the Eastern time zone, where, as we all know, usually when the All-Star weekend, whether it would be the skills competition, slam dunk, as well as the three-point contest, that's usually around 8 p.m. Same for the game there last night. But because it was on NBC and Peacock, I'm sure, where the masses were wondering, wait, why is the game so early? Why is the slam dunk competition, the three-point contest, why is it on at 5 o'clock? Well, obviously, there's this thing called the Olympics, which has been going on. So obviously, for those who were hoping an 8 p.m. start time, they, I'm sure, were not happy to see or at least watch their favorite players or teams, or when it comes to the skills competition, where they had an opportunity to watch this. And I'm sure that didn't make for happy fans who thought that there was going to be a later or usual start time than we thought. And I'm sure moving forward next year, obviously no Olympics next year and beyond, it'll be a situation where it'll probably be back in prime time. But when you had that throwing a little wrench into the system, which certainly for a lot of fans did not like. But yes, without watching, and although taking just a bit of an idea here and there from some of the things that I've read and some of the things that I've watched, of course, I did see highlights, etc. Like the skills competition, I could care less. I know that Jalen Brunson, Karl Anthony Towns were the winners of that. The three-point competition, look, Damian Lillard off of a bad Achilles wins the three-point contest, I guess, to kind of show the world that once he comes back that he has not missed a beat when it comes to his sharp shooting skills from behind the three-point arc. And then the slam dunk competition, I know the kid from Miami won, and from some of the stuff that I saw, it was just one guy almost knocked his block off there, hitting his head on the side of the backboard. You had just regular dunks. And to me, it's almost time to even shelve the thing, unless you're going to get the superstar player or at least a star player involved. I mean, think about it. When you go back to the days of Julius Erving, I understand you're going back to the ABA, but even in the early 80s when they resurrected the slam dunk competition, especially that one in Denver where Larry Nance won, when Nance was a member of the Phoenix Suns at that time. And when you had from that point on, whether it was Jordan versus Dominique, whether it was Kobe Bryant in the mid-90s in his rookie year winning the slam dunk competition, Vince Carter, which was probably the greatest exhibition of the contest that we saw back in 2000, and Jason Richardson won a couple. We know about Nate Robinson, and then just recently Mac McClung, who's not even in the league. I think recently he did sign a 10-day contract somewhere. But the slam dunk competition has certainly fallen way, way, way short. And I get it, Dwight Howard once upon a time. But you got to have a little bit of at least players that have either the dunk capabilities, which would make you say, oh, okay, I'd want to see that, or someone that is a star player where at least people are going to be drawn to watch this. And I get it over the last decade plus. And even though Nate Robinson, I know, was 5'7", and Blake Griffin was another guy who won the contest. I believe that was also in LA back in maybe 2014, I would think. But when you have a guy like Blake Griffin there, at least you know you have star power. You have a guy that obviously is known for dunking, a guy that is going to attract maybe not just the NBA fan, but it's going to attract a sports fan to think, oh, wow, Blake Griffin's going to be in the dunk contest. All right, maybe I'll tune in just to check it out and see how this is all going to unfold. But if it's going to be a scenario where you're going to have no names or role players, bench players, I mean, half of these guys I couldn't pick out of a lineup, the Carter Bryants of the world and the kid from Miami. I don't even know his name off the top of my head. But that just goes to show you how much I'm not paying attention. And a lot of these guys, if you recall, they signed up within the last week and a half, 2 weeks. It's not as if it's a thing where these guys dating back to, let's say, January, maybe December, hey, I'm signing up for the dunk contest, where it's like, oh, okay, we got a big name there, or somebody that we know of some sort of ilk is going to participate. No, you get none of that, which is a shame because there's no buildup. There's no anticipation for the slam dunk competition. And it's a shame because this is the one event that I think a lot of people will be drawn to. Granted that a lot of the dunks, you could pretty much scratch all the originality out because they've pretty much done everything, whether it's putting on a cape, whether it's trying to go from underneath the basket, whether it's trying to, who knows what else anybody could do at this point to try to make the slam dunk competition maybe not original, but something along the lines where maybe we haven't seen a particular situation where guys flying over chairs or over bodies or whomever. And maybe for the star player, they look at that as to me, it's a no-win situation because they look at it as forget about the money, forget about the trophy, whatever. I just want to participate in it, which is a shame. It's almost like with the home run derby, that's like having guys that are bench players or guys that you never even heard of that are going to be in the competition. Where the slam dunk, that's where the home run derby separates itself because that is the equivalent. And when you have, I hate to say it like this, but a bunch of nobodies or people that you never heard of be a part of this competition, you're going to look at it like, oh, I don't care because the NBA shows that they don't care as far as bringing in guys like LeBron James, who's never even participated in a dunk contest. And I never forget when the game was going to be played in Dallas, when they actually had it in Jerry's World, I believe a year and a half prior to that event, he said that, yeah, I'm going to participate in that dunk contest. And he never did, which is a shame because you would think even all of the great dunkers of the history dating back the last, 50 years, they've at least participated, even Blake Griffin for that matter. And we all know that he's had spectacular dunks from his days of Lob City. But anyway, I think that the All-Star festivity Saturday night, I've never been, especially over the last 10 years, I haven't really watched it, nor have I cared for it. And part of it is that attraction. And I understand with the three-point shooting contest, you do have guys that are able to shoot the rock, the Devin Bookers of the world, and a couple other guys that were on the marquee as far as the three-point shooting contest goes. But yeah, there isn't anything else to talk about or even write home about. And unless Adam Silver is going to say to whomever is, I couldn't even pick a guy right now. I mean, I'm not going to say Victor Wembanyama. The guy obviously can touch the rim without even having to jump. But they need to have some star power. That's the only way that the slam dunk competition is going to have any appeal, in my eyes. So that's that. And as far as the game yesterday, and I understand there were games within the games, USA versus the world, and the format, I could care less. And from the start of it, based on what I saw there with Bill Simmons, of course, you don't know who Bill Simmons is. He's one of the godfathers of sports talk when it comes to podcasts. And he's as big as an NBA fan that there is on a planet. And he was falling asleep watching it. And mind you, he lives on the West Coast. So they're 3 hours behind where I'm at, and he's falling asleep on the sofa watching this thing. Although it did get interesting there. I know that you had Scotty Barnes hit a 3 there to win one of those 4 quarters, and it was competitive. Now, I didn't watch, so I can't judge it. But again, I haven't been an all-star guy in forever. And a lot of it is the Matador defense, just the layup lines and the dunk contest within the game itself, on top of the three-point shooting that you see from pretty much half court or maybe even from three-quarters court, because it's just literally a free-for-all. And when you have scores that are 200 to 195, I mean, seriously, they might as well have me playing the game, because it's just a disgrace how they made a mockery of the All-Star game where, listen, I understand you're not going to go all out, balls to the wall, but you have to show some semblance of competitive nature. And from the heavens above, if Kobe Bryant would have watched that over the last couple of years, he forgot about it, spinning in his grave. So, again, it doesn't take me to even watch a minute, let alone watch 4 quarters of this or All-Star Saturday to say that it's a far cry from what it once was. You can say that for all the All-Star games. Forget about the Pro Bowl. It's a flag football game. We all know that. Baseball, the games aren't even competitive anymore. A lot of it, it's low scoring. You're looking to get 5 runs in a game, let alone, let's say, a 9-8 type of game, which we haven't seen in the All-Star game, I think, in forever. And the hockey All-Star game is pretty much the same. They're not going to hit one another. I understand this year notwithstanding because of the Olympics. But the All-Star games and all the sports are a joke. Baseball probably still has a sliver, and a very small sliver at that, of hope, because it is pitcher versus batter. They are trying to get each other out. I understand you may have the guy that's going to groove the 90-mile-an-hour fastball against a player that's aging, that's been around, that maybe is going in his last All-Star game. You heard about that with Adam Wainwright in Derek Jeter's last All-Star game in 2014, that he just grooved him fastball and he had a double down the right field line, I believe. So, yeah, you may get some of that, but for the most part, these pitchers are trying to get the batters out. And the batters, they don't even want to be there. Where years ago, I get it that the players, they look forward to going to an All-Star game because they did get paid to do that or to participate. And on top of that, you got to see the big stars play most of the game, if not 7 innings, 9 innings, the Willie Mazes of the world, the Mike Schmitz, players like that. Now, I understand I'm going back a million years, where now Aaron Judge will get 2 at-bats and he's out of there. He doesn't want to hang around for the whole 9 innings. He's probably got a destination involved to where he figures, let me take a couple of other days so I can get a blow and get out of this mess. So, and I'm not picking on him. I'm just using him as the example. So when you have a situation where these All-Star games overall are just a shell of what they once were, especially coming from yours truly, who watched All-Star games as a boy in the 70s and 80s, and it was a sight to behold to see your favorite players, to see the stars of these games perform, even on a high level, albeit an exhibition. Where now it's like these players, yeah, they want to be selected and they want to be there, but at the same time, it's like, oh, I don't want to get hurt, I don't want to get injured, I don't want. It's again, it loses a lot of its flair. So that's my take on it. And I get it. People are going to be outraged and say, well, JAYREELZ, if you didn't watch, how can you critique it? I don't even need to watch to critique it. Because, again, and I understand the game was competitive yesterday. And Anthony Edwards won the MVP. All right, fine. And Wembanyama, he even said going into the game that he was going to be competitive. He was going to show the fans that, yeah, I'm not taking this as a vacation or a day off or anything like that. And kudos to him, because he's going to be the face of this league at some point down the road. I mean, that's all there is to it. Because LeBron, KD, even the Anthony Edwards, the Jason Tatums, the Lukas, et cetera, they're not going to play forever, where Wembanyama is still, 21, 22 years old? So he literally has his whole NBA future ahead of him. So I'm sure he's looking at this. I got to take this serious. I got to look at the players from yesteryear and what they would look at an All-Star game as far as them participating and being serious and making sure that they keep the integrity and the spirit alive. And let's hope that that's going to be the case, because obviously he still has plenty of years left, and I'm sure a lot of All-Star appearances, and hopefully he's going to be the guy leading the charge to show that the All-Star game means something, as opposed to just, it's just a few days and I'm just here for the photo ops and whatever products they're going to plug and sponsors, et cetera, and then that's it. So that's what you have there with the NBA All-Star Weekend. Through my eyes, if you enjoyed it, if you watched it, fantastic, kudos. And again, I just going to get wrapped up in it. But as far as the league on a whole, when we look at the standings and where we're at, and more or less, this is not even a first half or 2/3, whatever you want to call it. We're not even at the 2/3 point because there are teams that have played 54 games. The Celtics have played 54, but you have some that have played a game or two less than that. Now, the Heat have played 56. So they obviously have played more than 2/3 of their schedule. Celtics are right at, as a matter of fact, they're more than 2/3. Then I look at that. Wait, let me see. 15, 35. That's 50. No, you got to get to 58 to get to the 2/3. Let me make sure I got my math correct. No, 54 would be at the 2/3 point. And then, even though it equals to 81, but you have teams that are right at that 2/3 threshold. So when I take a look at what we've had or I've had to this point, obviously OKC, although when you think about it, after that tremendous 24-1 start, and I know they've had guys in and out of the lineup, in particular Jalen Williams has that hamstring, and who knows how long he's going to be out. He was out with that hamstring, came back, played, and then now he's back on the shelf again. And after that 24-1 start, if I do my math correct, since then, they have been a pedestrian 18 and 13, which is still very good. I mean, you're 5 games above 500, but considering that start, I mean, I was thinking that this team could eclipse the 73-9 Warriors of 2015-16. Obviously, that is far from the case, but they're still a formidable team. They're a team that obviously are going to be the favorites going in to the postseason. And even if they end up just with 60 and 22 when it's all said and done, last year, think about this. They were 68 and 14, and they've already lost as many games now at this point of the year than they did all of last year. So have they taken the pedal off the metal, so to speak? Maybe a little bit. And hopefully they don't have that flick the switch on mentality. I don't think the head coach, Mike Daniel, is going to accept that. At least I don't think he would. But if they're all going to be healthy going into the latter part of April, into May and June, I mean, listen, they're going to be the odds-on favorites to win the whole thing. And I get it that the Pistons are 40 and 13, and they're going to fight for the best record because whomever has the best record in their respective conferences is going to have the home court advantage. And I'm sure the Pistons would love to have that, considering what they've been able to do here over the last couple of years, making it to the postseason for the first time forever last year. I understand losing in the first round in a hard-fought series to the Knicks, but now they have bigger aspirations and bigger goals, and I think that'd be one of them. If I'm the head coach there, JB Bickerstaff, I'm saying, hey, guys, let's go all out here for a 1 seed. Now, they're going to win the conference unless they just all of a sudden implode. They have a 6-game and 5.5 back are the Celtics in the East, but you would think that the Pistons will cruise to the 1 seed, but now it's just a matter of will they get the best record overall? And I think that's more of a crystal ball second half, which I'll talk more about on Thursday. But you also got to look at what the Pistons have done in this first half to kind of piggyback of what they did last year. And if you thought they were a fluke or a team that was meddling in the middle, they've risen right to the top of the conference, and I'm sure they want to show the world that with their young team led by the MVP candidate, Cade Cunningham, that they mean business and that they have a deep postseason run ahead of them. Now, obviously, there's a lot of time between now and, let's say, April 15th or 16th, which when you think about it, is 2 months from right now. Anything can happen with injuries and who knows, but the Pistons with their first half has been tremendous, and I think they've been a big surprise in that regard because I don't think anybody thought going into this year that the Pistons had 1 seed written all over them. Did you think that, all right, maybe they'll be a 2, 3? Could they fight for a 1? All right, I could see that. But to think that they've come out of the gate from day number 1 to this point now to where they already have 40 wins in the bank, and again, they are going to cruise to an Eastern Conference win in the regular season as far as having the 1 seed, I didn't see that coming. And despite the fact that the East was wide open this year, other than maybe the Knicks, considering with all the injuries there in the East, as we've talked about a million times, with Jason Tatum, Tyrese Halliburton, etc. But now it's a situation where the Pistons have to be put on notice here to see whether or not they're going to be a team that's going to go deep into May and maybe even June, or can another team there in the East, where there would be a team, if they're in the 4 or 5 right now, I don't think Cleveland or Toronto are going to be one of those teams if you're going to look at the standings at this very juncture of the season. But yeah, right now, when I look at the East, and I'll even go there, it's either going to be one of these 3 teams that are going to come out in my eyes. It's going to be Boston, New York, or the Pistons. That's it. I don't think Cleveland's going to come out of this, even with James Harden there. I don't see that happening, and you know how I feel about James Harden. Toronto's had a very good year. A lot of young players, but I don't know if they're going to have enough chops to get to a conference final, let alone an NBA final. Sixers, you can't predict their one day. Joel Embiid is out. We know Paul George is out till late March because of that suspension. And who knows how renewed and reinvigorated he's going to be upon his return. I'm sure he's going to add a shot to the arm to the Sixer team, but he's another one. Do I trust him in big spots? I do not. And the big spots are going to come in the postseason. Orlando, to me, has regressed. Very disappointing how they played this year, considering I thought with that young team they were going to take the next step. I thought maybe they would be a team that could flirt with a 1 seed in the conference, considering what they did last year. To me, they've regressed. And then you got Miami. Charlotte was a bit of a surprise, and I talked about Charlotte here over the last couple of weeks. And then you have the Hawks, and after that, it just falls off. Bulls, Bucks. I know Giannis have come out over the weekend during All-Star festivities saying that he's loyal to the Bucks. He wants to stay here. He wants to work things out. Good for him. And that's what you have there in the East. And in the West, obviously, we know it's a lot more loaded between OKC, Denver, Houston. You want to throw in the Lakers there, you can. But, San Antonio obviously is another team that you're going to look at, and San Antonio is going to be around for years to come. And that's going to be fascinating to see if we get to another OKC San Antonio, let's say, mano a mano conference final. And as it is right now, what is it? The Spurs are just 2. Is that right? Yeah, 2 in the loss and 3 back. They could actually overtake the Thunder for the 1 seed, which would be fascinating because the Spurs, and I'm sure the Thunder, they probably feel the same way. They know that they're built for the next half decade and beyond, but the Spurs are saying, hold my beer because we're even younger and may, when it's all said and done, even be better. And knowing how they matched up this year, they beat them in that semifinal for the NBA Cup. I believe they've beaten them, 3 out of 5 times this year, the Spurs. So they've certainly shown that they're not going to be afraid come late May of a Western Conference final between those two teams. And I think that would probably be, who knows, that would end up being similar to what we saw here in the NFL, Rams, Seahawks, as that being the Super Bowl. I could see that Thunder, Spurs being the NBA final before the NBA final. So you got to keep that in mind as we move it along. But with Denver and Houston, obviously with big-time aspirations, with those two teams, after that, bit of a drop-off there with the Lakers, T-Wolves, and then 7 through 10, you have Phoenix, Golden State, the Clippers, as well as Portland. But how I look at it is when we take a look at this first half, Denver, even without Jokic there for almost a month, have stemmed the tide, and they've actually won, 35 games, which considering I believe they were, 10-6 without Jokic during that absence. So they certainly did a very good job with him out of the lineup, and obviously with him being a perennial MVP candidate. And the Spurs are coming out of this break with a 6-game winning streak and nipping at the heels of Oklahoma City. So you know that they've had a tremendous start and a tremendous first half or 2/3 of their year. But what it's going to look like in the second half, we're going to have to talk about that on Thursday's podcast. I'll get into the crystal ball and get at least my overview of what to expect here over the last 2 months of the year. And obviously, once we get past that and see where the dust settles, once we get to that opening series, when it comes to the 7 through 10, the playing tournament, you're going to have that Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and even into Friday. And then the postseason will begin that Saturday, which off the top of my head, let me think, probably would be like April 19th, 20th. If my mind serves me correct. Let me see. That'll be the 4th. Yeah, probably like the 18th and 19th of April will be where the NBA playoffs will begin. And that's pretty much the first half. I mean, really, we can talk about some of these injuries. We can talk about Golden State if you want. How the Warriors, are they going to be a team that's going to kind of piecemeal it together? We know no Jimmy Butler, Draymond, and Steph Curry. I don't want to say on their last legs, but they have a lot of miles on them. And I get it that their reputation and their pedigree is going to speak a lot. But is it going to be enough to outlast the young guns, whether it is OKC, whether it is San Antonio, whether it's the veteran and the much deeper Denver Nuggets, KD-led in Houston? I mean, it's a stacked conference. And who knows if the Lakers or T-Wolves could actually make a run to a conference final. We know the Timberwolves have done it the last 2 years. But with that being said, I think the NBA could be exciting. It could be interesting. We understand it could get lost in the clouds, especially when you have the tournament for the NCAA, which will begin, I believe, let me think. The tournament will begin in earnest a month from tomorrow, And on the 19th, that Thursday, you have the 16 games a month from this coming Thursday. So obviously a lot of basketball, but with the NBA, that's where it's going to kind of get lost there in the shuffle when you're getting through the tournament. And for those watching, I know my nose is itching. Of course, it's not drugs, people, so I don't want you to think, or maybe I'm a little sleepy, who knows. But yeah, if you're wondering why my nose is itching for whatever the reason, I guess the room is a little humid. If you heard the steam in the background, I'm in the bedroom today, not the sports desk, with the wife at home working. So I think that has a little bit to do with it. But anyway, I digress. But now with the NBA, once we get past the tournament and certainly into April, and we'll see where these teams are when it comes to jockeying for position, whether it's trying to avoid the 7 through 10 playing scenario in both conferences, or will the Oklahoma City Thunder have the best record when it's all said and done to get home court, or will the Spurs overtake them? Will it be the Pistons? So you're going to have some drama here as we head into these final 2 months in a long season, a marathon of a season, as we all know. But, I'll be on top of it as we move it along here with the association. Now, I'm going to stay with the basketball. I'm going to pivot to the college game real quick because Arizona lost again twice in the matter of 6 days, where the Wildcats, who lost to Kansas there on Monday, now lose to Texas Tech behind JT Toppin. I believe he scored, 31 points, losing in overtime to the Red Raiders. And Arizona, listen, they hit a little bit of a speed bump. Does this mean that their number one seeding or number one nation in the nation is in jeopardy? Yes. But to me, it's all about the one seed in the region, because if they go through a bit of a tailspin here, if they lose, let's say, over the course of the next few weeks leading into conference championship tournament week, whether, let's say, they end up losing 4 games because they fall out of that top 4 where they won't be able to, let's say, have a 1 seed out in the West, that remains to be seen. We got to see what the rest of the schedule is going to look like. But right now, a bit of a speed bump there for the Wildcats, considering that they were perfect up until Monday before losing in Kansas, and then here at home to Texas Tech. So we will certainly see what's going to happen there. Then you had that skirmish between St. John's and Providence, which got ugly there as St. John's continues to win, and they look like they're going to be a very tough out when it gets to the tournament, led by Rick Pitino, of course, the head coach. So with the college basketball, as I take a look briefly with the rankings, and I'm sure that's going to change. I don't know. Has that changed as of yet? I'm sure you're probably going to see that here. Let's see. No, I don't see anything as of yet here as far as the standings go. Yeah, I see the USA already has a 1-0 lead on the hockey. And I'm going to touch on that in a minute when we get to the Olympics. But when it comes to the college basketball, you have, as of right now, it is Arizona, but that's going to change by end of today. I would think Michigan they'll be catapulted to the 1, where you'll have Houston, I'm sure Iowa State, Duke, depending on the coaches poll and the top 25, the AP poll. But right now, you would think that Arizona may fall down to as far as maybe 3, could go 4, but they probably lose a couple of spots, and everybody will move up from there. And yeah, as we look at the top 10 right now, between Houston, Iowa State, UConn, Duke, Illinois, Nebraska, Kansas, Michigan State, that rounds out your top 10. And obviously, this isn't a college football scenario when you're looking at the top 12 or 14 seeds to kind of get an idea as to, who's going to sneak in. Obviously, whomever's in the top 25, they're going to make it in. And I'm going to talk about the college football playoff in a matter of moments, because that was an absolute travesty, what we've seen there with the Big Ten and trying to put forth this proposal for a 2014 playoff. And I'm going to pause on that. I'll get to that after the Olympic segment. But that's going to be your college basketball for right now as we move it along. And actually tonight you have a big one there with Houston and Iowa State going at it. So one of those two teams are going to take a peg or 2 down or a peg or 2 up, maybe a peg up for Houston, a couple of pegs for Iowa State if they win. So that's going to be a big game there to watch tonight, ESPN doubleheader with Syracuse and Duke to start us off. All right, now I'm going to turn my attention to the Olympics, and there's a couple of things I want to touch on there. The first one being Ilia Malinin, the men's skater who obviously came into this Olympics as a heavy favorite to come out with a zillion medals, did win a medal for the team there in the middle portion of last week. And then on Friday was probably the stunner of all stunners, where as a 21-year-old and all the expectations and all the hype and everything coming in, the quad god, etc. And listen, I didn't watch this live. Friday, I was out and about driving in Manhattan. And then as I was coming off of the Parkway, I decided to open up the phone and see what was going on. And all I saw was breaking news, the quote, "I blew it," where Malinin did not fall once, fell twice during his solo event there Friday, which would be evening there in Milan. And listen, it doesn't take a figure skating expert or someone that's dialed into the Olympics, locked in. And as you know, I can't even say really, I have not been attracted to these Olympics at all. And it's no offense to any of the events, any of the athletes, none of it. But I understand I talked about Lindsey Vonn last week, the ACL, broke her leg, obviously made an attempt to try to see what she could do. Yes, I did talk about that because that was a huge story too. And we know Lindsey Vonn's resume, but I kind of hate to pile on the kid. But when you're a big favorite, and he led at the time, I believe it was 5 points ahead based on, this is what I got from the wife who's been following Malinin's journey, story, etc. But when you have the lead in this event, knowing that the spotlight is on you. And all right, we all know he's human. He's not a robot. He's not a machine. He's not AI. He's not a hologram. We get that. That's part of the beauty of sports, though. And I know that's going to be a part of his story 4 years from now at the next Winter Olympics. But you have to say that for him to not only fall, I mean, it happens, but he went from first place to eighth place. And I don't know what had gone into him. And here's where my assessment is going to come through, even though people are going to say, well, JAYREELZ, if you didn't watch live or even by watching a highlight, what are you going to get from that? Well, no, hear me out. I could see it was a thing where he trailed, or for whatever the reason, his scores were below normal. And maybe he was in third place, fourth place, let's say fifth place, where he had to make up some ground, where he had to, maybe in the back of his mind, it's like, oh man, I got to go all out, or oh man, the pressure's really on me here, or yeah, I got to do whatever it takes. And therefore tries to do a little bit too much. Obviously, too much going on in his head, maybe in his chest because of what's happening, and just fell to the pressure. All right, fine. Now, I give it up for him by saying that he blew it, made no excuses. That I give him 1,000% kudos. It's not like he shied away or ran away from the press or did not decide to take an interview to say, I don't want to speak to anybody, which obviously that would have really hurt him overall in my eyes, because that meant he wouldn't have owned up to it. But obviously he did, and you got to give him credit for that. But let's say it was a situation where he was trying to make up or cram in this one solo event to try to be the quad god that he is and try to do the quad spins, I'll just call it, because obviously I'm not well-versed in figure skating vernacular. But for him to have a lead, I mean, that's similar to Atlanta 28-3. That's similar to any outcome that you could see in sports. I don't want to say Blue Jays last year, they were up 3-0 early in the game. They had a 4-1 lead, and they blew the game. I mean, yeah, can you say they gagged? I didn't look at it at the time. But you could go through any of these scenarios in sports. You want to say 3-1, Golden State up on the Cleveland Cavaliers, and they spit the bit in the final 3 games. You could say that they choked and shrunk at the biggest spot, especially Steph Curry, fourth quarter, throwing behind-the-back passes with 4 minutes left in the game out of bounds. So I got to call like you see it. This was one that he spit the bit. He gagged. I mean, there's no other way to slice it, dice it, cut it. And unfortunately, when you have a guy that is going to be as one of the pillars of not only just the U.S., but in all the globe, everybody was looking forward to seeing what this kid was going to do on the stage. And by himself, not with a team for U.S., none of that. It was just him. It was his spotlight, his stage, etc. And he didn't fall short. He fell way short. So therefore, he has to take some hits here. Now, mind you, The comeback is going to be better than the setback. And I'm sure he's already chomping at the bit, having to get himself psychologically ready to perform there for the games in 2030. Still a long ways to go. And obviously he's going to learn from this, you would think. This is a bitter pill for him, I'm sure, in his team. This is the last thing that they've ever expected. And again, he had a lead. That's the other thing that just adds to this. Because I would give him a pass if it was a situation where he was under the gun, came out slow, didn't hit his landing, hit his marks correctly, so therefore his scores suffered a bit. And now it's like, oh, now I got to really turn it up. And all right, then he had a couple of falls, trying to make up for what he didn't do previously. Give him a pass. I mean, how do you explain this when you had a lead? That's all. And I'm sure my wife's not going to like that. She's going, oh, I can't believe you're killing this kid, whatever. Listen, you got to call it like you see it. That's all there is to it. I mean, whether it's my team, they blew a big lead, or a particular player that I like. Greg Norman is another one. The Masters, how he gagged that many moons ago. That's one that will live in infamy, especially when it comes to the Masters. What was that? Was that 93 with Nick Faldo? I think it was 93. It wasn't the 86 Masters. I know it was Nicholas. But yeah, unfortunately, that's how it is, and that's how it goes when it comes to a scenario with performers, players, teams, in this case, skaters, who are big-time favorites. A lot of us expected and had done exactly what he was supposed to do up until that point, and then all of a sudden just imploded. I don't know what else to say to that. So obviously that was a huge story coming out. And don't worry, I'll get to all your comments in a little bit for those who are, of course, watching live. As I'm just checking here for comments here. But when it comes to Malinin, again, tough break, unfortunate, but hopefully he learns from it and comes back bigger and better and wins 100 medals in the games 4 years from now. And as far as the hockey, I know the U.S. team right now, they're playing Sweden, and they're up 1-0 last I checked. I'll give you an up-to-the-date for those who are watching. Yes, second period, 1-0. Listen, if this doesn't have, and I see a couple of players being released there in the NFL, which I'll touch on a little bit. This has the makings of USA-Canada collision course Sunday. I guess that's at 8 in the morning Eastern time. And we know that the U.S. team, whether it's in Olympic competition or even in the Four Nations face-off last year when they lost to them, in overtime, I believe, Connor McDavid, and going back to 2010, Sidney Crosby, and I believe 14 as well. The pro players didn't play in 18. I don't think so. But, yeah, that's going to be an epic game. I mean, it's all there is to it. And as we've seen so far, they breezed by their opponents. I know yesterday Canada beat France, 10-2? And then you actually had a skirmish, which was much ado about nothing. They made it such a big deal, and it said, oh, there was a fight in Olympic hockey play. And I thought to myself, what? And I saw Tom Wilson was involved. But when you watched it with the French player ragdolled him to the ice. Now, he didn't throw any punches, and no punches were really thrown. And I guess Wilson got embarrassed because he tried to go after him. And they should have gotten roughings, not even double minors for that matter. But I don't even know what who cares? To me, that was a fight. Maybe for Olympic, that was a fight, but to me, that was a wrestling match, if anything. And Tom Wilson is a guy that if you put him 30 years ago, he wouldn't fight half the guys that he would fight now. And I understand he's big, and I understand he does fight, and I hate to pick on him, but I've always looked at him as a guy that is tall, does fight, but when he's going to fight the Ryan Reeveses and the Matthew Oliviers of the world, and dare I even say, going back to the Bob Proberts, Dave Browns, Jay Millers, Joe Koshers, that guy, he wouldn't even last a second with those guys. And that's just my opinion. I'm sure people of my age will look at Tom Wilson to fight in that era, and he wouldn't even have a shot with those guys. But that is, to me, USA, Canada, I'm sure right now you can put it in the bank for Sunday. And that's going to be a massive game. Now, what the rating is going to be like, who knows? Who's getting up at 8 in the morning and especially 5 on the West Coast to watch that game? I don't know. because they're not going to put that in prime time. It's not going to be on tape delay. They learned their lesson from the 80 hockey when the Soviets played against the U.S., and that game was actually 5 o'clock, literally right up the road, not literally, but up in Lake Placid, New York at that time, where they should have broadcast it live. But again, the ABC, who hosted the Olympics at that time, didn't have the foresight or the wherewithal to say, hey, let's show this game live. They had it on tape delay, and of course, they gave it away by saying, oh, there's a game you won't want to miss. And if you didn't watch or didn't keep yourself locked into news outlets or at the time sports phone, because there was no internet, there was no Twitter, none of that in 1980. So therefore, you're not going to get a situation where the game is going to be on tape delay, because the whole world will know who had won the game by the latest 11 a.m. come Sunday morning. So you have that, and I'm looking forward to that. Will I be up that early to watch? I may not be up at 8, but if I'm up at 9:15, I'll turn it on to see what's happening. That for sure. So, and that's what you have with the Olympics, at least from my standpoint. Let me see this. Now I'm looking at this thing with Ilia Malinin, hints at inevitable crash amid Olympic pressure. He posted a video on social media today juxtaposing images of his many triumphs with a black and white image of the U.S. figure skater with his head buried in his hands, hinting at an inevitable crash. And amid the pressure of the Olympics, while teasing a version of the stories coming on Saturday. Listen, I'm sure the kid had a ton of pressure. And look, he acknowledged afterwards that the pressure of the Olympics had worn him down, saying, I didn't really know how to handle it. You know what? I'll give him a pass for that. I mean, the kid's 21, 22 years old. And listen, anybody remember Debbie Thomas? Debbie Thomas in the 88 Olympics, she went in as the figure skater that everybody thought that she was going to just win gold medal after gold medal after gold medal. And she also wilted like a flower on a hot summer day. And Katarina Witt was the one who won all the golds that year. And I forgot where that was. Was that Salt Lake? That game, those games? I forgot. But listen, I get it. A lot of pressure. You even heard a couple of years ago with Simone Biles, how a lot of the pressure, mental health. And again, this kid is young. I can't even imagine what was going on in his head. And again, we talk about he had a lead. Now, I understand, listen, he spit the bit, and he's owning up to it. So that I got to give him props for. And listen, no excuse. Listen, he is admitting that he was unable to handle the pressure. Now, my thing is, you could only hope this lesson, based on what has transpired, will only build him for bigger and better 4 years from now. And that he doesn't fold at that time. And obviously he's going to be older. He's going to be wiser. I'm sure he's going to take this once this whole Olympic experience is over, and he'll have all rest of the winter, spring, summer to regroup, get it together, and come back bigger and better 4 years from now. So, yeah, that's one of the, on the world's biggest stage, those who appear strongest may still be fighting invisible battles on the inside. I get it. Hey, not everybody's built like Kobe Bryant. Not everybody's built like Michael Jordan. Not everybody's built like Tiger Woods or Tom Brady or any assassin that's out there. And that's part of the greatness. That's part of it. That have that steely will that I'll go through a brick wall. I'll beat my own mom. I don't care. And listen, that's not to say that Malinin doesn't have it. At least he doesn't have it right now that we've seen, but maybe 4 years from now, he'll build that up, and who knows? Here's another guy, Michael Phelps. And he talked about mental health a lot, smoking weed and all that. But guess what? That guy, when he showed up, showed out. Champion or gold medals, and you know the hardware he has. So some people are built different, and you got to chalk it up to just them having that DNA. And that DNA, I tell you, is something that you can't teach. It's something that you build, and it's something that you earn. That's it. And I can only hope for this kid that he is able to build it up in his way over these next 4 years to get to that podium, to get that gold medal, and then some. So that's what I got there with the Olympics. Now, I'm going to turn my attention to, where's this tab here? Oh, here we go. Yeah, so next I want to talk about is this. I'll get to the football now. I was going to get to the baseball, but I'll talk about that in a moment. But I have to get this off my chest. And there's a couple of NFL cuts that are already taking place with the Miami Dolphins. But the scenario regarding the college football playoff, I know the Big Ten, the commissioner, Tony Petitti, has this proposal. And without going into the weeds, because this isn't official, this isn't anything that is etched in stone, but he's proposing the playoff, which, as we all know, is currently constituted as 12 teams. They want to get it to 16. And then by 2029, a 24-team playoff. And he has it all broken down as to how it would be seeded and what the schedule would look like. And I talked about how the schedule would look like just based on 12 teams. And I put that out weeks ago. So that receipt, you want to cash that in, you could go back and check the archives of that. But to me, this makes absolutely no sense. And I'm not trying to be a contrarian. I'm not trying to be – how is this going to work? I mean, think about it. How are teams from 16 to 24 have any shot of getting to a quarterfinal, let alone a semifinal or a national championship? Look, James Madison and Tulane, we saw how they played here, and they didn't even belong on the same field as Oregon and the other team right now off the top of my head eludes me. Tulane played. They play Ohio. Right now it's eluding me. It'll come to me. I know James Madison and Tulane obviously were one and done, had no business. And James Madison played, I believe it was Oregon. But when you're going to add these other teams, and we all know what it's about. I mean, please, it's about the green, the money, and on top of the inventory, because they know that if they expand, that means more people are going to watch. They're going to get more revenue based on the streaming services, the networks, whatever it may be. And that doesn't necessarily mean that the quality of play and the competition is going to be up to snuff. I mean, haven't they not learned that? Is anybody in their right mind? And I understand it's going to be a process to where you're going to have almost like a playing tournament to where those teams from 17 to 24, they're going to go up against one another to advance. I believe that's what Petitti had laid out. So it's not like 24 is going to play one. I mean, please, because that would be a complete waste of time. So they're going to weed out whatever the top four seeds are, and then whatever that second rung, and then they're going to have those teams from 17 to 24 fight it out and then get in. To me, these games, and I get it, that they're going to last up until about the middle of the month, similar to what we saw this year, and that they will move the schedule up. There'll be no conference championships, which that's going to hurt. Maybe not necessarily the Big Ten, SEC, et cetera, because we all know those conferences are bulletproof, but maybe the Big 12, maybe a team that is looking to be a part of the ACC to a lesser degree, where you look at someone like Duke, where they're going to get big-time money just by playing in the game with sponsorship and things of that nature. But as we all know, the conference championships don't mean anything anymore. So to me, and I don't think Petitti had outlined this, but after the Thanksgiving weekend, the playoffs will start the following week. And I understand they're going to be bye teams for those who have the top few seeds, whatever that may be. But 24 teams, I mean, it's just going to water down the playoff in an enormous way. And I don't want to see it. If you're going to put it to 16, that should be the cap. 16 is fine. Just like we see in the NBA, you have 16 teams, 8 in each conference. NHL, the same deal. Baseball, they have 12, and they just expanded that to 12-6. And the NFL has 7 and 7. But to me, 16 should be the cap. There shouldn't be any more teams than 16. But we all know it's the greed. It's them trying to do whatever they can, as they've seen with the NBA with their rights package, getting $76 billion over an 11-year period. The NFL's the NFL. They're going to get the biggest piece of the pie, no matter what sport it is. MLB with NBC getting into the mix now. And listen, they only signed a 3-year deal because you have this impending lockout that's going to probably happen there come December 1st. But they signed a $2.4 billion deal. And college football saying, hey, we want to jump into the party. We want to be part of this fray. Let's add more teams by 2029, and then we'll have a multi-billion-dollar package that everybody's going to want to watch to see 24 teams face off against one another. If that's the case, why don't you make it out to be, instead of a March Madness, it's going to be a January, I don't know, jump around, or who knows, or December declaration. I don't know. Just trying to make it alliterative. But to me, it's just, I can't stand it. I don't like it. And again, I'm not trying to buck the system or be different or whatever. I truly feel that it's not clickbait, it's not rage bait, whatever. I'm sure there may be a ton of people that say, hey, I'm all down for 24. Why not? The more the merrier. It's going to be fascinating. It's going to be this, it's going to be that. And who knows? Will I even like it? We're going to have to wait till the next decade to even unpack that. But right now, on the surface, I do not like it. Just like they say, too much of anything is not good for you, whether it's too much alcohol, too much, and even the good stuff. Oh, I drink too much water. Well, obviously you're going to be in the bathroom with 1,000 trips there. So, well, anyway, enough of that. I'm going to move it along here. That's what I got with the college. As far as the NFL, you got a couple of players that were cut by the Dolphins. Bradley Chubb, the one-time first-round pick of the Broncos who got traded there, what was it, back in 2022 to the Dolphins, and he's had injury after injury. He has been a shell of what he was in Denver. And let's face it, was a complete bust in Miami. He got cut, as well as Tyreek Hill. Now, who knows? Hill could possibly resign. But based on what it is that I saw, let me pull that up here real quick. Based on what I saw, they're releasing him because I'm sure he's a cap casualty. Yeah, guard James Daniels, a former Steeler. And Tyreek Hill turns 32 on March 1st, recovering from dislocated knee. It's ACL, we already know. And it will save them $22.8 million against the salary cap. And they probably still could re-sign him for a much lesser deal. And who knows what's going to happen with Tua. I think they're going to have to keep Tua for now, only because Tua's owed, I believe, $99 million the next 2 years, and it would take a severe cap hit, whether they release him before March 1st or after. I don't even know what the guidelines are when it comes to his contract. But, yeah, that's obviously a situation where they are hamstrung with that deal. So that's what you have there with the NFL. No other players have been cut here as of yet, but I'm sure you may see a few others between now and March 1st get released. All right, let me turn. Should I go to the baseball? Yes, let me turn my attention to the baseball and see what we have there. Now, we have a couple of interesting stories, both out of Philly camp. I was going to start with Bryce Harper. You know what the hell? I'll start with him first. And I'll get to Nick Castellanos, who has a new team, by the way. Bryce Harper showing up to camp, going into, I believe this is now what, his 15th season, which is, I mean, to think he's been in Major Leagues 15 years already, it's just, I remember when he first came up, 19 years old, 2012, and now here it is, going on year 15. But for Harper, if you recall in the offseason or after the end of the regular season, the president of baseball ops for the Phillies, Dave Dombrowski, came out to say that he doesn't know if Harper could be an elite player based on his stats last year, which were very pedestrian for Harper. And he is now 33 years of age. And by any means, he was being honest, Dombrowski, but I can understand maybe it could be a bit disparaging considering that he may not think that Harper is that elite player. Now, he's hoping that this year would come back, have a big year, maybe motivate him. But then Harper, upon his first comments here at spring training, said that I don't need any motivation, that he was alarmed by Dombrowski's comments, considering that the policy is that a lot of this stuff will be kept in-house. And I guess for whatever the reason, maybe Dombrowski was throwing that out there to add a little fire to Harper going into this offseason and into spring training now. And who knows if there are going to be Christmas cards sent to the Dombrowski or Harper households here. I don't know if they've mended fences in that way, but based on what Harper said, that I didn't think he was going to come out and lash to the media about my play last year. And even he did admit that it was below average, was below his normal stats of him being a guy that you would think is a perennial MVP candidate player. And Harper, I would think he may not use that for motivation, or he said that he's not, but I'm sure deep down inside he's burning to know that he's going to take the NL and AL by storm this year and show everybody up, including his president of baseball ops. And that'd be the best way to stick it to him, because obviously to get into a war of words is not going to help his case by any means. And he still has I believe 6 years left on his deal. So it's not as if he's going anywhere. He loves Philadelphia. He loves the fans, etc. So let's see if he's going to use those comments as his own personal playground to come up with a big-time MVP year, which I'm sure in his eyes he wants to cap it off with a World Series championship, because that's what it's all about. Hopefully not at the behest of the New York Mets, which I'll get to in a minute. But for Harper, listen, took the high road, didn't want to make it personal, knowing that he even said that a lot of the stuff that was supposed to be in-house, he's going to keep it that way. And kudos to him for doing that, because the last thing, as I mentioned, it's not going to do him any good to take a shot or throw a barb at the guy who obviously is not his boss, but is running the team. So that's going to be one to keep an eye on here as we move it into this spring training and see what kind of spring he has. If he has one of those 8-homer, 375 batting average type springs, that could be a precursor to what lies ahead for Harper in this coming Major League Baseball season. So that's something to keep an eye on. And then the other news coming out of Philly camp was Nick Castellanos, the former right fielder, who I believe fell out of favor with the manager and even with the front office, because he was released there on Friday and was owed $20 million going into the last year of his deal. But there was an incident in Miami, which happens to be his hometown, where he was pulled from a game. I forgot if he wasn't hustling, or I think it was something along the lines of that. I guess in the field on a routine play in the outfield, kind of just lollygagged it, and therefore got pulled to where he left, then came back to the dugout with a beer in his hand. And obviously that is a no-no. And there were some words last year that Castellanos did not reveal, kept it in-house, which obviously stamps the argument there for Harper with Dombrowski, but didn't really expound on it, didn't say much, said that he was wrong. I believe he apologized to the manager team, etc., but that was it. Come to find out that he was released there Friday, as you know. Now he's latched on in San Diego, and he'll be a member of the Padres. Now, I don't know where he's going to play. We know Tatis Jr. plays right field. I don't know if he's going to be a full-time DH. He's going to play left field. Obviously, they have their team pretty much constructed there with their position players, and I'm sure he'll probably fit in somewhere, maybe left field. I believe he was taking even grounders at first base. He could possibly be their first baseman, because they don't really have a first baseman now that I think about it off the top of my head. I'm not dialed into Padre baseball at the very moment, but for Thompson, yeah, he did reveal a little bit about that, because since Castellanos is no longer there, that he did come in there with a beer. And even Castellanos, obviously he's no longer with the Phillies, said that, yeah, I had a Presidente beer from the Dominican Republic there in the dugout. And yeah, obviously it was just a bad optic. Wasn't good. Castellanos gets released. They figure out it's $20 million. They're going to pay 19 point whatever, I guess 19.1 something, because the Padres are going to pay the minimum $708,000. So almost 19.3 million of that will be on the hook for the Phillies this coming year. So that's what you have with Castellanos, as he now has a new address. So that's it there with the baseball. But then there's one other thing. I know I saw some comments here with Steve Cohen, and now U.S. is up 4-0 on Sweden. So that game is over for all intents and purposes. Steve Cohen says there'll never be a captain while he owns the Mets. Oh, I got to read a quote about this. This is interesting. Mets aren't going to name a team captain anytime soon. Owner Steve Cohen said Monday he will never name a captain as long as he's in charge, seizing speculation that the franchise would one day grant Francisco Lindor the title. Now, before I even get to his quote, I don't take that as an affront as a fan, because when you think about Met history, you haven't had many captains. Keith Hernandez, once upon a time, had the captain C on his jersey if you date back to 1987. And I believe Mike Piazza was the pseudo-captain of the team. I don't believe since then it wasn't Carlos Beltran. David Wright, I believe, was named captain by the Wilpons, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know that for sure. But everybody knew that that was David Wright's team. And nobody even questioned whether or not he was the captain, although whether official or not, I believe he was probably named officially captain during his tenure there with the Mets back in the late 2000s into the 2010s and teens. But it's not as if this organization has had this run of captains dating back to the days of not even Tom Seaver, because I don't even think he was the captain. Granted, he was the franchise. But I'm not going to look at this as a fan like, oh, wow, I can't believe Steve Cohen did this. Or, oh, look at this. Because the organization hasn't really had a line of captains dating back to the 80s, if you want to even say Keith Hernandez. And then after that, you didn't really have a guy that was the face of the franchise. Oh, come on, Bobby Bonilla? Who are we kidding here? Then Piazza came in, and Piazza, I believe, was the captain, although they didn't wear Captain C. But we all know he was the face of the team. And then when he left, that's when Wright came in. But Wright didn't really get that until the latter part of that decade. Because remember, you had Beltran there who signed the big contract. Carlos Delgado. There were more leaders on that team than Wright was, despite the fact he put up big numbers before their departure. Delgado first and then Beltran later on in that trade to San Francisco with Zach Wheeler. So, yeah, listen, I'm not going to be, I can't believe Steve Cohen is doing this. To me, so what? Now, my thing is that what does Francisco Lindor have to say about this? And he should take the high road also, because he could be the de facto captain and not wear or have the official C on his chest. So I would think that he would just look at it as like, hey, that's all right. We're here to win a World Series. We're here as a team. Whatever it is that I can provide, whatever it is I could lead by example, etc., I'm going to continue to do that. I don't need the captaincy on my chest in order to be the quote-unquote captain of the team. That's how he should handle it. If he handles it any other way than that, then, maybe he's taking it personal. And as a matter of fact, here it is, and I'm reading it right now. There have been 4 official captains in Met history. Keith Hernandez being the first one, 1987. I mean, please. You don't think I follow this team? Gary Carter, John Franco, David Wright followed. Now, that's weird because Carter was there just 2 years after the 87. And Franco, I remember, he did wear the captaincy at one point. And then Wright. And then since Wright retired in 2018, hasn't been a captain since. And then David Wright says he has supported the notion of the organization. Even published a 1-minute video last July chronicling the Met captains ahead of Wright's retirement ceremony that included Lindor before deleting it. I guess he thought that he was going to be the guy. But Cohen has said, as long as I'm owning the team, there'll never be a team captain. That was my decision. My view is the locker room is unique. Let the locker room sort it out year in, year out. I don't like that. The first part of that was my decision. He could have just left it at that. Let the locker room sort it out year in and year out. Well, then that means you're letting it up to the locker room to decide on who the captain is, even though there may not be an official term. I mean, come on. Steve Cohen made that more out to be more than what it should have been. My view is every year the team's different. Let the team kind of figure it out in the locker room without having the designation. Having a captain in baseball doesn't happen often. It's unusual. Then some of the comments, 3 to 5 years to be disappointing as far as winning a World Series. The answer is his 6th year as an owner. The 40th anniversary, as you all know. Every year that goes by, I get frustrated. I'm really committed to this team, and I know how much the fans care. I know we're celebrating the 48th anniversary, and that's just too long, you think? And then there are a lot of great teams out there. No matter what you do, it doesn't mean you're necessarily going to win the World Series, but I just want to put myself in position every year in the playoffs where we have a chance with a really good team. Want to put myself in position every year in the playoffs. What happened last year? Anyway, so that's that. I'm not going to get into more of his comments. I don't want to bore you with that nonsense. So that's what you have there with the baseball. If there's anything else, I'll pull that up. And let me see. What else do I have here before I move on to the comments and the questions? I believe that's what I have. Let me do one last spin here. Yeah, we talked about obviously NBA, college, the Olympics, college football. Oh, here we go. One last thing. It's a sport. I got to give it its due. And I'll even raise my hand high in the air that I didn't even talk about it on Thursday's podcast. We know it's the Super Bowl of racing, the greatest race of all. Yesterday was the Daytona 500. Did anybody watch? I'm sure you know the answer to that from my lens. And it's no offense to the sport, no offense to the drivers, no offense to the event. Not wrapped up in it. I have no investment, no interest, none of it. And people can say, well, JAYREELZ, come on. You could have watched a little bit of it. You could have seen what had gone on. If you've listened to this podcast for years, dating back to my days of, going back 8 years, the days when I was a boy, the Indy 500, and how much I talked about the Indianapolis 500 as a boy, that Sunday before Memorial Day, that was like ushered in the summer. And yes, was I watching every lap? Was I tuned into it every year as a boy? No, but the Mario Andretti's, the Alex Seniors, going down the list, the Richard Petty's, all those great racers from that time. And even into this century with the Ilia Malinin, a guy who's won, I believe, 4 Indianapolis 500s. Now that's an afterthought compared to the Daytona 500. But I just can't. Sorry. I understand Tyler Reddick won, and it wasn't because of, I believe, the guy, Chase Elliott. He got into a crash there late, which propelled Reddick to win the Daytona 500. And what actually is another wrinkle to it is Michael Jordan, with Reddick being part of the racing team that is Michael Jordan. I think it's 23-9, I believe, is the team, which is under Denny Hamlin, who co-owns that with Jordan. And Denny Hamlin, I believe, is a 3-time Daytona 500 winner. So Jordan was ecstatic, holding up trophies and hugging it out. And you know that was something that he's going to brag to his cronies that, how many people got a Daytona 500 under their belt. And I understand he's not behind the wheel. I get it that he wasn't involved in the race, but he's part of that team. And if Reddick is a member of that team, well, guess what? It's almost like an owner who owns a sports franchise and they win. So he's part of that. So you know what? Congrats to Tyler Reddick first and Michael Jordan for winning. Other than that, I got nothing else to add. So with that, that will conclude the podcast. So before I get to the comments, and let's get to that right now. Val B, and it's, of course, all the hellos, everybody. I know Val liking the live, and I'll get to everybody. Here we go. As I'm jumping on now. Let's see. Fishing Angel, good morning to you. Of course, I got the regulars here, J-Rod and Val B. Well, it's not popping up here. I know I didn't have the graphic on the bottom to list each sport. I'll do that for Thursday's podcast. I promise you that. All right, now the hockey. Wait a second. That hockey game. Oh, that's the women's game. I thought that was the men's. My apologies. Here I am thinking that it's the men's game I'm watching, and it's not. It's the women's who are winning, and the women's are going to go. I mean, please. They're just killing everybody here. So my apologies for thinking that this match between the Swedes and the U.S. was a men's game. Hand raised high. I got to take accountability for that. So that is my error there. But let's see what we got. As I scroll through the comments here. Glad you guys liking the show. Hawaii 5-0 after hockey game. J-Rod, yes. Fishing Angel, I get rowdy when it comes to hockey. I love hockey. It's my sport for sure. Oh, is that your favorite sport? I love it. Michigan big win over Bios. UCLA calling for 40. It was 20. Split by 30. I don't know. Bios in the room. 6 likes and alive now. Thank you, Val. 55 through. That's a good idea. Physical therapy outdoors, a little walking. Good for you, J-Rod. That's good. Even though maybe you should check the doctor just to make sure. But you know what? That's a good idea. Get some fresh air. Hopefully have some sunlight, nature. That's the good cure-all right there. I want USA men's to win a gold medal. I want USA women's. Oh, and that's probably going to happen. Now, Canada, to get over that hump, that's going to be big. So, yes, you're right. Harrison Bader is a former Phillies player, Val. Absolutely. That's going to be a massive game. And they got to get over that hump because U.S. is not beating Canada in a big spot, as I detailed about an hour or so ago. Yeah, you're right about that, Val, 100%. With the new offensive coordinator, we all know that Clint Kubiak went to coach the Raiders. Michigan's been playing Purdue. And Michigan, yes, they will be number one after Arizona loses, as we know. Sean, Welcome aboard. I don't know if you're still with us, but thank you so much. 4 different All-Star games, so confusing. Yeah. Bettors have trouble getting to the action. Hey, listen, if people are betting the All-Star games, then you know what, man? They're a lot better than me because I'm not a betting man, and oof, that's tough. Yes. Very good, Val. I know you're on top of that. Bio. What is up, my man? I know Tyreek Hill. Bradley Chubb, who was a bust there. Let's face it. Yeah, Bio. UCLA only lost by 30. Oh, good stuff. They split it for us. Yes. 100%. What is this? Dolphins have. Yep. Oh, I didn't know about Westbrook Akine. He was the one-time Titans wide receiver. And Daniels, we talked about earlier. Padres extended AJ Preller. Big rainstorm about this SoCal. Is that right? Next 4 days? Bio, I know you're an hour out. What was the pulse of your neck of the woods when it came to All-Star Weekend? And I know they've hosted a million of those, but I'm just curious to hear from your perspective. Alternate account 2010. That's the you're talking about the USA Canada, I believe. I appreciate that, Val. Thank you so much. You already know. Yeah, that's the Pirates signed Marcell Ozuna. I know I didn't talk about that. Pirates making some small moves, but for them, those are big moves. Who else did they sign? Ryan O'Hearn, the former Oriole, and they also brought in who else? Another decent stick. His name's eluding me right now. Ozuna, O'Hearn. Damn it, I'll think of it. Thank you, Ole Miss. Thank you, J-Rod. Yeah, I was James Madison, Oregon, and Tulane, Ole Miss. Drawing blanks. That's why I'm not up on the college football right now. My focus is more on NBA. What's going on right this very second? Now, that'd be an interesting pickup. Can you click this again? Thank you. That'd be cheating. That would be Tyreek Hill with Jameson Williams and Amon-Ra. Depends on how much he'd sign for, but that would be enormous. Oof. Since you read the comment section, I was saying, well, here's the thing. When I do the podcast, I want to get out all the sports first and then talk about, get into your comments. So unlike the Wednesday live stream, obviously it's a stream of consciousness, literally, where I'll talk about some things, but then I'll go ahead with your comments as with the flow of the show. But here, it's comments after doing the quote-unquote podcast. Yeah, now it's 5-0 game. Yeah, this is lagging today. I don't know what's happening. Dodger spring training starts Saturday. Baseball is back. Well, yeah, and that's when all the position players will report by then. I'm curious, Bio, I'm sure there's got to be some players that have come in early, whether it's Mookie or I would think even Edwin Diaz. Well, the pitchers and catchers already reported, so he's there. So, Bio, just reads our local farm system. Great. Oh, is that right? Oh, check that out. Hey, Fuqua Johnson, Gavin Sheets. Oh, that's right. Gavin Sheets, the Project first baseman. I don't know if Fuqua's announced himself just yet. I won't shout him out. Yeah, let me read that again from Bio. Bio just realized the local farm team. Now, is that single A? Jay, I'm curious. Another goal, USA. Oh, yeah, no, the women's hockey is, forget about it. They're all over it right now. Yeah, this is lagging today. I don't know what's happening with maybe with my mouse. St. Brown, JMO, and Hill. Yeah, that would be like Madden. That would be a video game. Tyreek Hill. Would he go back to Kansas City? Considering. Now he's coming back at that. He's coming off of that injury. Would there be a reunion of sorts? I wouldn't be surprised. Listen, they could use Tyreek Hill. And listen, they won Super Bowls without him, but I would not be surprised there. All right, let's see what else we got here, people. Anything else news-wise sports? Let's see. Yeah, I know that's sad news, but that Trey Johnson, the former offensive lineman for the former Washington football team, but at the time he played, he was with the Redskins. Terrible. Happened while they were on a family trip. That reminded me, when I read that reminded me of Larry Allen, the Hall of Famer, Dallas Cowboy, where weren't they in Cabo on a family trip and he suffered a heart attack? And terrible news. Awful. Yeah, but that's what's happening here, people. And then, like I said, there's nothing really to discuss as far as the schedule for the week. NBA is not going to pick up till Thursday. We'll talk about that on Thursday's podcast. We'll do an NBA second half at that time. We'll see where the sports landscape takes us throughout the early part of this week into the weekend. And then obviously next week, we'll get into what's happening in the NBA over the weekend. NHL doesn't start until a week from this Wednesday, because the Winter Olympics will end Sunday. And then, of course, with players flying back and trying to get acclimated, the schedule in the NHL doesn't pick up until Wednesday. And then, college basketball will still be going on. We'll talk about that Wednesday. But think about it. You got no games other than college basketball until Thursday night. So, and I know Brent, north of the border, my guy, our guy, Tolman, he says, you're wrong. There's always something going on. And yeah, I understand there's always something going on. But if this isn't a sports dead zone, I don't know what is. I don't. I mean, this is listen, here I am talking about Steve Cohen and what he has to say about the captaincy with the Mets. I mean, is that a story? I guess it is when there's nothing going on. There's no games to discuss. So, listen, this is what happens. And before I conclude, last week when I did my first live podcast, and I guess it was right after the Super Bowl, and I had a bunch of views on it. I had almost 1,000 views. I just had to throw that out there. And this week, I'm sure it's going to be a lot less than that. But to do a show or a podcast after the Super Bowl, I mean, that's a layup. Anybody could do that. But you know what? I thrive on shows like this because there isn't a lot that's out there. And that's why I love that I do all the sports, because let's say if I just did the NFL, what am I talking about today? Am I spending an hour talking about Tyreek Hill and Bradley Chubb getting released? Or speculating who the Seattle Seahawks will play in week 1 of the 2026 NFL season, which is not for another 7 months? Will I talk about, it's possible that this player could get cut or that player could get cut? Or, I mean, come on. Nobody's going to listen to that, even if you're a sick NFL fan. That's why by doing all the sports and blanketing everything, there's always something. And I don't know what the numbers will be like. Maybe I'll talk about that on Thursday's podcast. But you know what? It doesn't matter, because these shows I thrive on even more, because trying to not only entertain, inform, but also be credible, also authentic, etc. This is where my, I guess you want to say, podcast host chops really stand out. And I'm not trying to pat myself on the back or whatever. I may sound that way, but let's be honest. Shows like this, I look forward to even more so than the Super Bowl show. Or let's say in the middle of April, after the opening weekend of the NBA, and you have the Stanley Cup playoffs about to begin, you have baseball that's underway, and you have the NFL draft. I mean, anybody could do that show. It's shows like this where it's a bit of a challenge. But you know me. I make sure, as always, what's the saying, people? Always coming correct, direct, and in full effect. It's the only way I know how. And that's why I appreciate you guys and gals for hopping on board, my diehards, my day ones, etc., showing your true colors to support me, because I'm not going to shortchange you. I'm not going to give you anything less but 100% effort in what it is that I do. As I say all the time, and I'll say it for the end when I'm in front of this camera and microphone. Oh, that's single A. All right, J-Rod. Thanks for clearing that up. Because, I never heard of that team. And, I figured it was probably more single A, double A than their triple A team. Val, you didn't watch it either? I hear you. They play out of Midland, Michigan, about an hour. Oh, okay. Oh, half hour, 40 minutes. Awesome. Bassmasters, throw that in. Oh, is that right? Oh, look at that. And that's what J-Rod's all over the Bassmasters. So good for you. Kudos to you on that as well. All right, well, that'll do it, my good people. Wait, hang on a second. I'm telling you, what's that? I missed that comment. I'm telling you, my birthday is the start of the Sports Dead Zone. Yes, in all intents and purposes, it is. Because the Super Bowl is an event, as we know. I skipped your comments there. Oh, wait a minute. I have to go back. What did I miss, Fishing Angel? Hold on. No, I did put this one out. Women's hockey. Did I miss another one? Yeah, I know you were updating us with the scores. If I didn't post that, my apologies. What's the next one you got here? All right, but any last comments, feel free to throw them out now as I'll land this plane nicely. Of course, Bio always shouting us out to have a great sports day. My apologies to Bio the other day on their live. Yeah, today was a short live podcast pregame. You go check that out on the channel too. It was a short one, but yeah, I stuck at the sports. Didn't get crazy, so that's what we have there. Well, that'll do it, my good people. Another episode just about in the books. As always, thank you so much for stopping by, carving out precious time out of your day to listen to what it is I have to say about what goes on in the toy department of life called sports. And if you haven't done so, of course, please subscribe, rate, review, Apple, Spotify, right here, the channel on YouTube. And please share with your family, friends, foes, frenemies, whether they like sports, love sports, the casual, the diehard fan, doesn't matter. Please forward it to them. Take a screenshot, post it on their socials, send it to me, tag me on it as well. On Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, the JAYREELZ podcast, or JAYREELZ on Instagram. Twitter, JAYREELZ1, just a number. Twitch, for those streamers out there, JAYREELZ1 as well. The old-fashioned way, if you want to hit me up with a question, comment, suggestion, the JAYREELZ podcast at gmail.com. I'll be more than happy to follow up with you guys and gals, because whether you do or do not know, this is what I love to do, people. In the blood and the DNA, talking sports is birth. And like I said earlier, it doesn't matter if it's a sports dead zone, a slow sports time, things are on and popping, or it is full-blown up to my eyeballs in sports. As long as I sit in front of this camera and microphone, I promise I'll deliver nothing but passion, fire, energy, fury, my thoughts, opinions, critiques, praise, analysis, feelings on anything and everything that happens on the world of the diamond, ice, gridiron, hardwood, golf course, racetrack, tennis court, boxing ring, octagon, you name it. From my lips to your ears, from my heart to your soul, from where I am to wherever you are, the JAYREELZ live stream and podcast always comes live, correct, direct, and in full effect. From the South Bronx, the South Beach, the South Central, the South Pacific, and all points beyond, peace, love, and God bless everybody. And until next time on the JAYREELZ podcast, on the flip, baby. And yes, Fishing Angel, I will do so. I will tell us that you said hello. And Val, it's raining. It stopped. Hopefully the sun shines and it'll be bright and ready to go for another lovely Monday, and have a great week as well. And hope to see you guys on Wednesday's live stream. You know the time, 12 p.m. Eastern, with the latest and greatest of what's happening in the world of sports. And don't worry, we'll get the comments in between my commentary throughout, as you well know. So until then, everybody, on the flip.